for one this time, but first let me introduce you to Tag Back, the show where every week we take a look at another blaster from the past and see what it could offer us today in the present. And while I've tried to do videos on these two blasters previously by themselves, there just wasn't a whole lot to talk about, so I figure we lump them into one whole video, and since they're from the same line, that makes sense to me. It's not the entire line, although I really wish that could happen someday. But today we're going to be talking about the Nerf Cyber Stryke Autogrip, and then the Nerf Cyber Stryke Ratchet Blast. Two very interesting blasters, and I think we're going to start off with the Ratchet Blast here. This is a very interesting blaster, obviously. You can fire it one-handed. It's one of the few blasters you can do that with completely stock. Now, keep in mind these blasters are ancient and probably older than most of the people who watch these videos, and originally this came with some kind of crazy, like, wrist guard thing that I don't think any still exist anymore, and even if they did, you'd probably remove it anyway, since it's going to be much smaller without that. It was like half the size of the blaster. And without it, what do you get? You get like this crazy space-age 4-shot one-handed pistol, which primes in the same way as the Proto Breakflip. You just kind of like that and fire it. Now, the turret itself does not rotate. It's actually just a front-loaded, 4-dart kind of chamber thing. What rotates is the plunger tube, which is kind of weird. Busby's been doing that recently, and there were some blasters in the past that did it, like this one. And it's kind of effective, I guess. Now, it's an interesting kind of thing, because when you rotate this, you'll notice it has this weird, long, drawn-out mechanism right there. Unlike the brake flip, which just pivots the entire handle, this thing actually stretches itself out. So it is entirely different than the brake flip in that regard, and that the brake flip is, boomco and clip fed. This is not, but it's still pretty darn good. The spring in here is pretty beefy, but it's meant to fire the original old school Megas, so you're gonna need to rebarrel it. And the worst part is that there's no indicators on the side of which barrel is going to fire. Really, the only way to know is to kind of look at it, prime it, and you can see the air release hole move. Not the best idea, but it works. And overall, if you were to beef this thing up and, rebarrel it to shoot elites or something like that, I'm willing to bet it's a really good blaster, but like I said, not too much has been done with these things, and they're kind of rare. If you were to beef this up, and these are both Chehalis blasters, I might add, so he's definitely going to be beefing them up, well, you could probably get a lot out of him, and I'm really excited to see what he does, and hopefully he just doesn't destroy this and put a drain blaster in it. We'll see. I should mention that the scope on the top is absolutely amazing, and I don't know how well you can see that, but there's a piece of plastic in between both of these open holes right here, which has crosshairs in it, and they're lovely. Overall, if you had a nice leg holster, be a good blaster. The grip is extremely comfortable. You can see right there, it's got a nice beaver tail right there with these contours that cut in towards the trigger, and the trigger is very easy to pull and very comfortable, which is good for a blaster like this. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of like the lock and load kind of grip. And you can spin it. So it's fun. I like this blaster a lot, but unfortunately it's not mine, so I can't get too attached to it. And that leaves us with the Cyber Stryke Autogrip, which I kind of demonstrated there for a second, but it's an enigma. Now, I should mention that this kind of wrist grip strap thing here is not original. I doubt very many of the originals exist. This is actually just one that Chehalis kind of put together, and heck, it works good. Feels really nice in the hand. You can still grab another blaster pretty easily, although it does push this out of your way if you use it. It does seriously limit your wrist movement, but it can be done. And the main gimmick of this thing is that you prime it like that, so you're going to be running around with this thing like this, and then to flip up the blaster itself, you're supposed to pull this pin, and that flips up, you can grab it. It's got a really nice little comfortable grip right there, and then you pull the trigger and fire it, and just like the Ratchet Blast, it fires the old school Mega Dart. Now, this thing is kind of crazy, and I did find one little gimmick with it. Now, the first thing that confuses me is I don't exactly know. I did kind of know. So this little notch in here, which is really hard to see, this notch right here is where the catch is, and I'm not exactly certain how that works because I don't see a spring in there. I'm guessing the spring's on the other side, inside this plastic cap right here. But the only way to take this thing apart is to break the solvent weld on it, which may destroy the blaster and it's very old, but the plunger tube is pretty lengthy. Not that it really matters all that much because it's got this exposed tubing on it, which is kind of a shame. But it does work, and the little trick I found out with it is that there's a little nub, again, really hard to explain, right here, and when you press that in, it's just like pulling this pin out. Now, if I pull that pin out, you'll notice that it flips up, but if you really want to, you can just hit that with your pinky finger, and it flips right up. The ranges with it are about the same as the Ratchet Blast, although it's, you know, this kind of goofy blaster, and again, it really limits your wrist movement. I can't roll my wrist whatsoever. So, it might not be the best idea, but it does in fact work. And if you wanted to, you can definitely rebarrel these things and make them usable. There are some other cool blasters in the Cyber Stryke gear line. Most notably off the top of my head is the Perceptor, which is like a blaster that you have on your eye. I believe that connects to a chest plate, or maybe the chest plate is a different blaster. There's a lot of weird blasters in that line. In fact, I can't remember off the top of my head if the Nitro Quad is one of those, but the Nitro Quad is another blaster I don't have that I remembered that I very, very much wanted. But still, it's a cool blaster. It works, and out of the two, I'd probably say the Ratchet Blast is going to be the most useful, but then again, if you have a hammer shot, this might not be a very usable alternative to you, but it is cool, and if you were to beef it up, I don't think you could beef it up all that much. I don't think the whole pullback mechanism could take that much punishment, but the spring in it is already pretty beefy. It does kind of have the floppy problem that the brake flip had, but I'm sure you can fix that in pretty much the same way. See? And with it firing elite darts, it might get, you know, 50, 60 foot ranges or 50, 60 FPS with them. So who knows? And like I said, both of these are Chehalis, and I'm excited to see what he does with them. But if you have any ideas for him that I can pass on to him, or if I happen to find one, or if just you want to tickle the idea, go ahead and let me know what you would do with these blasters down in the comment box below, and which one is your favorite. Do you like the Ratchet Blast the most, or are you more of a fan of the Autogrip here? I like that trigger. I don't know if you can hear that. It's very definite. It feels very good. This is kind of squishy. I'm Walcom S7. Thank you so much for watching this video, and of course I hope to see you in an entirely different one.